if you want to check Facebook, but you need to exercise more, after I put my phone out, I would do 10 burpees. After I do 10 burpees, I will check Facebook. The hope is that eventually you look forward to calling 3 clients or doing 10 burpees because it means you get to read the latest sports news or check Facebook. Doing the thing you need to do means you get to do the thing you want to do. We began this chapter by discussing supernormal stimuli, which are heightened versions of reality that increase our desire to take action. Temptation bundling is one way to create a heightened version of any habit by connecting it with something you already want. Engineering a truly irresistible habit is a hard task, but this simple strategy can be employed to make nearly any habit more attractive than it would be otherwise. Chapter summary. The second law of behavior change is make it attractive. The more attractive an opportunity is, the more likely it is to become habit forming. Habits are a dopamine driven feedback loop. When dopamine rises, so does our motivation to act. It is the anticipation of a reward, not the fulfillment of it, that gets us to take action. The greater the anticipation, the greater the dopamine spike. Temptation bundling is one way to make your habits more attractive. The strategy is to pair an action you want to do with an action you need to do. 9. The role your family and friends the role of family and friends in shaping your habits. In 1965, a Hungarian man named Laz Laszlo Polger wrote a series of strange letters to a woman named Clarka. Laszlo was a firm believer in hard work. In fact, it was all he believed in. He completely rejected the idea of innate talent. He claimed that with deliberate practice and the development of good habits, a child could become a genius in any field. His mantra was, "A genius is not born, but is educated and trained." Laszlo believed in this idea so strongly that he wanted to test it with his own children. And he was writing to Clara because he needed a wife willing to jump on board. Clara was a teacher, and although she may not have been adamant as Laszlo, she also believed that with proper instruction anyone could advance their skills. Laszlo decided chess would be a suitable field for the experiment, and he laid out a plan to raise his children to become chess prodigies. The kids would be homeschooled, a rarity in Hungary at the time. The house would be filled with chess books and pictures of famous chess players. The children would play against each other constantly and compete in the best tournaments they could find. The family would keep a meticulous file system of the tournament history of every competitor the children faced. Their lives would be dedicated to chess. Laszlo successfully courted Clara, and within a few years, the Polgers were parents to 3 young girls, Susan, Sophia, and Judith. Susan, the oldest, began playing chess when she was 4 years old. Within 6 months, she was defeating adults. Sophia, the middle child, did even better. By 14, she was a world champion, and a few years later, she became a grandmaster. Judith, the youngest, was the best of all. By age 5, She could be her father. At 12, she was the youngest player ever listed among the top 100 chess players in the world. At 15, at 15 years and 4 months old, she became the youngest grandmaster of all time, younger than Bobby Fischer, the previous record holder. For 27 years, she was the number one ranked female chess player in the world. The childhood of the Poger sisters are atypical, to say the least, and yet, if you ask them about it, they claim their lifestyle was attractive, even enjoyable. In interviews, the sisters talk about their childhood as entertaining rather than grueling. They loved playing chess. They couldn't get enough of it. Once Laszlo reportedly found Sophia playing chess in the bathroom in the middle of the night, encouraging her to go back to sleep. He said, "Sophia, leave the pieces alone." To which she replied, "Daddy, they won't leave me alone." The Poker sisters grew up in a culture that prioritized chess above all else, praised them for it, rewarded them for it. In their world, an obsession with chess was normal. As we are about to see, whatever habits are normal in your culture are among the most attractive behaviors you'll find. Wow. The seductive pull of social norms. Humans are herd animals. We want to fit in, to bond with others, and to earn the respect and approval of our peers. Such inclinations are essential to our survival. For most of our evolutionary history, our ancestors lived in tribes. Becoming separated from the tribe, or worse, being cast out, was a death sentence. The lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. Meanwhile, those who collaborated and bonded with others enjoyed increased safety, mating opportunities, and access to resources. As Charles Darwin noted, in the long history of humankind, those who learn to collaborate and improvise most effectively have prevailed. As a result, one of the deepest human desires is to belong. As this ancient preference exerts a powerful influence in our modern behavior. We don't choose our earliest habits, we imitate them. We follow the script handed down by our friends and family, our church or school, our local community, and society at large. Each of these cultures and groups comes with its own set of expectations and standards. When and whether to get married, how many children to have, which holidays to celebrate, how much money you spend on your child's birthday party. In many ways, these social norms are the invisible rules that guide our behavior every day. You're always keeping them in mind, even if they are at the not top, I guess is even they are not at the top of your mind. Often, you follow the habits of your culture without thinking, without questioning, and sometimes without remembering. As the French philosopher Michel de Montaigne wrote, the customs of practices of life in society sweep us along. Most of the time, going along with the group does not feel like a burden. Everyone wants to belong. If you grow up in a family that rewards you for your chess skills, playing chess will not seem like a very will playing chess will seem like a very attractive thing to do. If you work in a job where everyone wears expensive suits, then you'll be inclined to splurge on one as well. If all your friends are sharing an inside joke or using a new phrase, you'll want to do it too. So they know that you get it. Behaviors are attractive when they help us fit in. We imitate the habits of three groups in particular: one, the close; two, the many; and three, the powerful. Each group offers an opportunity to leverage the second law of behavior change and make our habits more attractive. Number one, imitating the close. Proximity has a powerful effect on our behavior. This is true of the physical environment as we discussed in chapter 6, but it is also true of the social environment. We pick up habits from people around us. We copy the way our parents handle arguments, the way our peers flirt with one another, the way our coworkers get results. When your friends smoke pot, you you give it a try too. When your wife has a habit of double checking that the door is locked before going to bed, you pick it up as well. I find that I find it that I often imitate the behavior of those around me without realizing it. In conversation, I'll automatically assume the body posture of another person. In college, I began to walk like my roommates. When traveling to other countries, I unconsciously imitate the local accents, despite reminding myself to stop. What? As a general rule, the closer we are to someone, the more likely we are to imitate some of their habits. One groundbreaking study tracked 12,000 people for 32 years and found that a person's chances of becoming obese increased by 57% if he or she had a friend who became obese. It works the other way too. Another study found that if one person in a relationship loses weight, the other partner would also slim down about one third of the time. Our friends and family provide a sort of invisible peer pressure that pulls us in their direction. Of course, peer pressure is bad if you're surrounded by bad influences. When astronaut Mike Massimino was a graduate student at MIT, he took a small robotics class. Of the 10 people in the class, 4 became astronauts. If your goal was to make it into space, then that room was about the best culture you could ask for. Similarly, one study found that the higher your best friend's IQ at age 11 or 12, the higher your IQ would be at age 15, even after controlling for natural levels of intelligence. We soak up the qualities and practices of those around us. One of the most effective things you can do to build better habits is to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. Okay, it's a normal. Okay, wow. New habits seem achievable when you see others doing them every day. If you are surrounded by fit people, you're most likely you're more likely to consider working out to be a common habit. If you're surrounded by jazz lovers, you're more likely to believe it's reasonable to play jazz every day. Your culture sets your expectations for what is normal. Surround yourself with people who have habits you want to have yourself. You'll rise together. To make your habits even more attractive, you can take this strategy one step further. Join a culture where 1. Your desired behavior is the normal behavior, and 2. You already have something in common with the group. Steve Camp, an entrepreneur in New York City, runs a company called Nerd Fitness, which help nerds, misfits, and mutants lose weight, get strong, and get healthy. His clients include video games lovers, movie fanatics, and average Joes who want to get in shape. Many people feel out of place the first time they go to the gym or try to change their diet. But if you are already similar to the other members of the group in some way, say your mutual love of Star Wars, change becomes more appealing because it feels like something people like you already do. Nothing sustains motivation than better than belonging to the tribe. It transforms a personal quest into a shared one. Previously, you were on your own. Your identity was singular. You are a reader. You are a musician. You are an athlete. When you join a book club or a band in a cycling group cycling group, your identity becomes linked to those around you. Growth and change is no longer an individual pursuit. We are readers. We are musicians. We are cyclists. The shared identity begins to reinforce your personal identity. This is why remaining part of a group after achieving a goal is crucial to maintaining your habits. It's friendship and community that embed a new identity and help behaviors last over the long run. Very interesting. Hmm. Number two, imitating the many. In the 1950s, in the 1950s, psychologist Solomon Asch conducted a series of experiments that are now taught to legions of undergrads each year. To begin each experiment, the subject entered the room with a group of strangers. Unbeknownst to them, the other participants were actors planted by the researcher and instructed to deliver scripted answers to certain questions. The group will be shown one card with a line on it, and then a second card with a series of lines. Each person was asked to select the line on the second card that was similar in length of the line in the first card. It was a very simple task. Here is an example of the two cards used in the experiment. Here are the two cards right here. So this is the first card and this is the second card. Figure 10. This is a representation of two cards used by Solomon Asch in his famous social com- conformity experiments. The length of the line in the first card left is obviously the same as line C, okay? But when a group of actors claimed it was a different length, the research subjects would often change their minds and go with the crowd rather than believe their own eyes. The experiment always began the same. First, there will be some easy trials where everyone agreed on the correct line. After a few rounds, the participants were shown a test that was just as obvious as the previous ones. Except the actors in the room would select an intentionally incorrect answer. For example, they would respond A to the comparison shown in Figure 10. Everyone would agree that the lines were the same length even though they were clearly different. The subject who was unaware of the rules would immediately become bewildered. Their eyes would open wide. They would laugh nervously to themselves. They would double check the reactions of other participants. Their agitation would grow as one person after another delivers the same incorrect response. Soon, the subject began to doubt their own eyes. Eventually, they delivered the answer they knew in their heart to be incorrect. Ash ran this experiment many times and in many different ways. What he discovered was that the number of actors increased. Was that as the number of actors increased, so did the conformity of the subject. If it was just the subject and one actor, then there was no effect to the person's choice. They just assumed they were in a room with a dummy. When two actors were in the room with the subject, there was still little impact. But as the number of people increased to 3 actors and 4, all the way to 8, the subject became more likely to second guess themselves. By the end of the experiment, nearly 75% of the subjects had agreed with the group answer, even though it was obviously incorrect. Wow. Whenever we are unsure how to act, we look to the group to guide our behavior. We're constantly scanning our environments and wondering, what is everyone else doing? We check reviews on Amazon or Yelp or TripAdvisor because we want to imitate the best buying, eating, and travel habits. It's usually a smart strategy. There is evidence in numbers, but there can be a downside. The normal behavior of the tribe often overpowers the desired behavior of the individual. For example, one study found that when a chimpanzee learned an effective way to crack nuts open as a member of one group and then switches to a new group that uses a less effective strategy, it will avoid using the superior nut cracking method just to blend in with the rest of the chimps. Humans are similar. There is tremendous internal pressure to comply with the norms of the group. Ah, the reward for being accepted is often greater than the reward for winning an argument, looking smart, or finding truth. Most days, we'd rather be wrong with the crowd than right by ourselves. The human mind knows how to get along with others. It wants to get along with others. This is our natural mode. You can override it. You can choose to ignore the group or to stop caring what other people think. But that takes work. Running against the grain of your culture requires extra effort. When changing your habits means challenging the tribe, change is unattractive. When changing your habits mean fitting in with the tribe, change is very attractive. That's facts. 3. Imitating the powerful. Humans everywhere pursue power, prestige, and status. We want pins and medallions on our jackets. We want president or partner in our titles. We want to be acknowledged, recognized, and praised. This tendency can seem vain, but overall, it's a smart move. Historically, a person with greater power and status has access to more resources, worries less about survival, and proves to be a more attractive mate. That's facts too. We are drawn to behaviors that earn us respect, approval, admiration, and status. We want to be the one in the gym who can do muscle ups, or the musician who can play the hardest chord progressions, or the parent with the most accomplished children, because these things separate us from the crowd. Once we fit in, we start looking for ways to stand out. This is one reason we care so much about the habits of highly effective people. We try to copy the behavior of successful people because we desire success ourselves. Many of our daily habits are imitations of people we admire. You replicate the marketing strategies of the most successful firms in your industry. You make a recipe from your favorite baker. You borrow the storytelling strategies of your favorite writer. You mimic the communication style of your boss. We imitate people we envy. Mm. High status people enjoy the approval, respect, and praise of others. And that means if a behavior can get us approval, respect, and praise, we find it attractive. We are so motivated to avoid behaviors that will lower our status. We trim our hedges, and mow our lawn because we don't want to be the slob of the neighborhood. When our mother comes to visit, we clean up the house because we don't want to be judged. We are continually wondering, what will others think of me? And altering our behaviors based on the answer. Mm. The Polar Sisters, the chess prodigies mentioned at the beginning of this chapter, are evidence at the power of the powerful and lasting impact social influences can have on our behavior. The sisters practiced chess for many hours each day and continued this remarkable effort for decades. But these habits and behaviors maintained their attractiveness, in part because they were valued by their culture. From the praise of their parents to the achievements and of different status markers becoming a grandmaster, they had many reasons to continue their effort. Ah, I'm gonna skip the chapter summary, no cap. 10. How to find and fix the causes of your bad habits. I'm gonna take a quick picture of this real quick. Okay. In late 2012, I was sitting in an old apartment just a few blocks from Istanbul's most famous street, Istiklal Kadesi. I was in the middle of a 4-day trip to Turkey, and my guide, Mike, was relaxing in a worn out armchair just a few feet away. Mike wasn't really a guide, he was just a guy from Maine who had been living in Turkey for 5 years. But he offered to show me around while I was visiting the country, and I took him up on it. On this particular night, I had been invited to dinner with him and a handful of his Turkish friends. There were 7 of us, and I was the only one who hadn't, at some point, smoked at least 1 pack of cigarettes per day. I asked one of the Turks how he got started. Friends, he said. It always starts with your friends. One friend smokes, then you try it. What was truly fascinating was that half the people in the room had managed to quit smoking. Mike had been smoke free for a few years at that point, and he swore up and down that he broke the habit because of a book called Alan Carr's Easy Way to Stop Smoking. It frees you from the mental burden of smoking. It tells you stop lying to yourself. You don't actually want to smoke. You don't really enjoy this. It helps you feel like you're not the victim anymore. You start to realize that you don't need to smoke. I had never tried a cigarette, but I took a look at the book afterward out of curiosity. The author employs an interesting strategy to help smokers eliminate their cravings. He systematically reframes each cue associated with smoking and gives it a new meaning. He says things like, "You think you are smoking something, but you're not. You think you are quitting something, but you're not quitting anything because cigarettes do nothing for you. You think smoking is something you need to do to be social, but it's not. You can be social without smoking at all. You think smoking is about relieving stress, but it's not. Smoking does not relieve your nerves, it destroys them." Ooh. Over and over, he repeats the phrases and others like them. These phrases and others like them. Get it clearly into your mind, he says. You are losing nothing and you are making marvelous positive gains not only in health, energy, and money, but also in confidence, self respect, freedom, and most important of all, the length and quality of your future life. By the time you get to the end of the book, smoking seems like the most ridiculous thing in the world to do. And if you no longer expect smoking to bring you any benefits, you have no reason to smoke. It is an inversion inversion of the second law of behavior change. Make it unattractive. Now, I know this idea might sound overly simplistic. Just change your mind and you can quit smoking. But stick with me for a minute. Where cravings come from? Every behavior has a surface level craving and a deeper, underlying motive. I often have a craving that goes something like this: I want to eat tacos. If you were to ask me why I want to eat tacos, I wouldn't say because I need food to survive. But the truth is, somewhere deep down, I am motivated to eat tacos because I have to eat to survive. The underlying motive is to obtain food and water if my specific craving is for a taco. Some of the underlying motives include conserve energy, obtain food and water, find love and reproduce, connect and bond with others, win social acceptance and approval, reduce uncertainty, achieve status and prestige. A craving is just a specific manifestation of a deeper underlying motive. Your brain did not evolve with a desire to smoke cigarettes or to check Instagram or to check video games. At a deep level, you simply want to reduce uncertainty and relieve anxiety, to win social acceptance and approval, or to achieve status. Look at nearly any product that is habit forming, and you'll see that it does not create a new motivation, but rather latches onto the underlying motive of human nature. Find love and reproduce equals using Tinder. Connect and bond with others equals browsing Facebook. Mm. Underlying motives of human nature. Wow. Win social acceptance and approval, posting on Instagram. Reduce uncertainty, searching on Google. Achieve status and prestige, playing video games. Your habits are modern day solutions to ancient desires, new versions of old vices. The underlying motives behind human behavior remain the same. The specific habits we perform differ based on the period of history. Here's the powerful part: there are many different ways to address the same underlying motive. One person might learn to reduce stress by smoking a cigarette. Another person learns to ease their anxiety by going for a run. Your current habits are not necessarily the best way to solve the problems you face. They are just the methods you learn to use. Once you associate a solution with a problem you need to solve, you keep coming back to it. Habits are all about associations. These associations determine whether we predict a habit to be worth repeating or not. As we covered in our discussion of the first law, your brain is continually absorbing information and noticing cues in the environment. Every time you perceive a cue, your brain runs a simulation and makes a prediction about what to do in the next moment. Cue: you notice that the stove is hot. Prediction: if I touch it, I'll get burned, so I should try avoiding it. Cue: you see that the traffic light turned green. Prediction: if I step on the gas, I'll make it safely through the intersection and get closer to my destination, so I should step on the gas. You see a cue, categorize it based on past experiences, and determine the appropriate response. This all happens in an instant, but it plays a crucial role in your habits because every action is preceded by a prediction. Life feels reactive, but it is usually predictive. All day long, you are making your best guesses of how to act given what you've just seen and what has worked for you in the past. You are endlessly predicting what will happen in the next moment. Our behavior are heavily dependent on these predictions. Put another way, our behavior is heavily dependent on how we interpret the events that happen to us, not necessarily the objective reality of the events themselves. Two people can look at the same cigarette and one feel the urge to smoke while the other is repulsed by the smell. The same cue can spark a good habit or a bad habit, depending on your prediction. The cause of your habits is actually the prediction that precedes them. These predictions lead to feelings, which is how we typically describe a craving, a feeling, a desire, an urge. Feelings and emotions transform the cues we perceive and the predictions we make into a signal that we can apply. They help explain what we are currently sensing. For example, whether or not you realize it, you are noticing how warm or cold you feel right now. If the temperature drops by 1 degree, you probably won't do anything. If the temperature drops 10 degrees, however, you'll feel cold and put on another layer of clothing. Feeling cold was the signal that prompted you to act. You have been seeing the cues the entire time. But it is only when you predict that you would be better off in a different state that you take action. Wow. Predict that you will be in a different, better off in a different state. Wow. Okay. A craving is the sense that something is missing. It is the desire to change your internal state. When the temperature falls, there is a gap between what your body is currently sensing and what it wants to be sensing. The gap between your current state and your desired state provides a reason to act. Desire is the difference between where you are now and where you want to be in the future. Even the tiniest actions are tinged with the motivation to feel differently than you do in the moment. When you eat, binge, or light up, or browse social media, what you really want is not a potato chip or a cigarette or a bunch of likes. What you really want is to feel different. Our feelings and emotions tell us whether to hold steady in our current state or to make a change. They help us decide the best course of action. Neurologists have discovered that when emotions and feelings are impaired, we actually lose the ability to make decisions. We have no signal of what to pursue and what to avoid. As the neuroscientist Antonio Damasio explains, it is emotion that allows you to mark things as good, bad, or indifferent. To summarize, the specific cravings you feel and the habits you perform are really an attempt to address your fundamental underlying motives. Whenever a habit successfully addresses a motive, yet you develop a craving to do it again. In time, you learn to predict that checking social media will help you feel loved or watching YouTube will allow you to forget your fears. Habits are attractive when we associate them with positive feelings, and we can use this insight to our advantage rather to our detriment. How to reprogram your brain to enjoy hard habits. You can make hard habits more attractive if you can learn to associate them with a positive experience. Sometimes all you need is a slight mindset shift. For instance, we often talk about everything we have to do in a given day. You have to wake up early for work. You have to make another sales call for your business. You have to cook dinner for your family. Now, imagine changing just one word. You don't have to, you get to. Ooh. You get to wake up early for work. You get to make another sales call for your business. You get to cook dinner for your family. By simply changing one word, you shift the way you view each event. Wow. You transition from seeing these behaviors as burdens and turn them into opportunities. The key point is that both versions are of reality are true. You have to do these things, and you also get to do them. We can find evidence for whatever mindset we choose. I once heard about a I once heard a story about a man who uses a wheelchair. When asked if it was difficult being confined, he responded, "I'm not confined to my wheelchair. I am liberated by it. If it wasn't for my wheelchair, I would be in bed. I would be bedbound and never able to leave my house." Wow. This shift in perspective completely transformed how he lived each day. Reframing your habits to highlight their benefits rather than their drawbacks is a fast and lightweight way to reprogram your mind and make a habit seem more attractive. Wow, that's beautiful, really. Exercise. Many people associate exercise with being a challenging task that drains energy and wears you down. You can just as easily view it as a way to develop skills and build you up. Instead of telling yourself, "I need to go run in the morning," say, "It's time to build endurance and get fast." Finance. Saving money is often associated with sacrifice. However, you can associate it with freedom rather than limitation. If you realize one simple truth, living below your current means increases your future means. The money you save this month increases your purchasing power next month. Meditation. Anyone who has tried meditation for more than 3 seconds knows how frustrating it can be when the next distraction, yo, this is facts, invert in inevitably 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 it inevitably pops up into your mind. You can transform frustrations into delight when you realize that each interruption gives you a chance to practice returning to your breath. Distraction is a good thing because you need distractions to practice meditation. Mm. Pre-game jitters. The more you feel anxious before delivering a big presentation or competing in an important event, they experience quicker breathing, a faster heart rate, heightened arousal. If we interpret these feelings negatively, then we feel threatened to tense up. If we interpret these feelings positively, then we can respond with fluidity and grace. You can reframe "I am nervous" to "I am excited that I'm getting an adrenaline rush to help me concentrate." These little mindset shifts aren't magic, but they can help change the feelings you associate with a particular habit or situation. If you want to take it one step further, you can create a motivation ritual. You simply practice associating your habits with something you enjoy. Then you can use that cue whenever you need a bit of motivation. For instance, if you always play the same song before having sex, then you'll begin to link the music with the act. Whenever you want to get in the mood, just press play. Ed Latimore, a boxer, a writer from Pittsburgh, benefited from a similar strategy without knowing it. Odd realization, he wrote. My focus and concentration goes up just by putting my headphones on while writing. I don't even have to play any music. Without realizing it, he was conditioning himself. In the beginning, he put his headphones on, played some music he enjoyed, and did focused work. After doing 5 After doing it 5 times, 10, 20 times, putting his headphones on became a cue that he automatically associated with increased focus. The craving followed naturally. Athletes used similar strategies to get themselves in the mindset to perform. During my baseball career, he I developed a specific ritual of stretching and throwing before each game. The whole sequence took about 10 minutes, and I did it the same way every single time. While it physically warmed me up to play, more importantly, it puts me in the right mental state. I began to associate my pregame ritual with feeling competitive and focused. Even if I wasn't motivated beforehand, by the time I was done with my ritual, I was in game mode. You can adapt this strategy for nearly any purpose. Say you want to feel happier in general. Find something that makes you truly happy, like petting your dog or taking a bubble bath. Then create a short routine that you perform every time before you do the things you love. Maybe you take 3 deep breaths and smile. 3 deep breaths, smile, pet dog, repeat. Eventually, you begin to associate this breathe and smile routine with being in a good mood. It becomes a cue that means feeling happy. Once established, you can break it out anytime you need to change your emotional state. Wait, where am I? Stressed at work? Take 3 deep breaths and smile. Sad about life? 3 deep breaths and smile. Once a habit has been built, the cue can prompt a craving, even if it has little to do with the original situation. The key to finding and fixing the causes of your bad habits is to reframe the associations you have about them. It's not easy, but if you can reprogram your predictions, you can transform a hard habit into an attractive one. Wow, this was really good. I like this. I like this chapter right here. This was definitely a W chapter. Wow. Wow. Very interesting. Very interesting. All right. There you go. I'm gonna go ahead and skip these and just look at these when like when we're done with the book. Number 11. Walk slowly but never backward. On the first days of class, Jerry Uelsman, a professor at the University of Florida, divided his film photography students into 2 groups. Everyone on the left side of the classroom, he explained, will be in the quantity group. They will be graded solely on the amount of work they produced. On the final days of class, he will tally the number of photos submitted by each student. 100 photos would rate an A, 90 photos a B, 80 photos a C, and so on. Meanwhile, everyone on the right side of the room would be in the quality group. They will be graded only on the excellence of their work. They would only need to produce 1 photo during the semester, but to get an A, it had to be a nearly perfect image. At the end of the term, he was surprised to find that all the best photos were produced in the quantity group. During the semester, these students were busy taking photos, experimenting with composition and lighting, testing out various methods in the darkroom, and learning from their mistakes. In the process of creating hundreds of photos, they honed their skills. Meanwhile, the quality group sat around speculating about perfection. In the end, they had little to show for their efforts an unverified other than unverified theories and one mediocre photo. It is easy to get bogged down trying wait, okay. It is easy to get bogged down trying to find an optimal plan for change. The fastest way to lose weight, the best programs to build muscle, the perfect idea for a side hustle. We are too focused on figuring out the best approach that we never get around to taking action. As Voltaire once wrote, the best is the enemy of the good. I refer to this as the difference between being in motion and taking action. The two ideas sound familiar, but they are not the same. When you're in motion, you're planning and strategizing and learning. Those are all good things, but they don't produce a result. Action, on the other hand, is a type of behavior that will deliver an outcome. If I outline 20 ideas for articles I want to write, that's motion. If I actually sit down and write an article, that's action. If I search for a better diet plan and read a few books on the topic, that's motion. If I actually eat a healthy meal, that's action. Okay, so it's actually doing it. Yeah, okay. Sometimes motion is useful, but it will never produce an outcome by itself. It doesn't matter how many times you go talk to the personal trainer. The motion will never get you in shape. Only the action of working out will get you the results you're looking to achieve. If motion doesn't lead to results, why do we do it? Sometimes we do it because we actually need to plan or learn more. But more often than not, we do it because motion allows us to feel like we're making progress without running the risk of failure. This is facts. Oh my god. Most of us are experts at avoiding criticism. It doesn't feel good to fail or to be judged publicly, so we tend to avoid situations where that might happen. And that's the biggest reason why you slip into motion rather than taking action. You want to delay failure. Hmm. I'm gonna I'm gonna skip this. Whatever. It's easy to be in motion and convince yourself that you're still making progress. You think, I've got conversations going with 4 potential clients right now. This is good. We're moving in the right direction. Or, I brainstormed some ideas for that book I wanted to write. This is coming together. Motion makes you feel like you're getting things done, but really you're just preparing to get something done. When preparation becomes a form of procrastination, you need to change something. You don't want to merely be planning, you want to be practicing. If you want to master a habit, a key is to start with repetition, not perfection. You need to map out every feature of a new habit. I'm sorry, you don't need to map out every feature of a new habit. You just need to practice it. This is the first takeaway of the third law. You just need to get your reps in. How long does it actually take to form a new habit? Habit formation is a process by which a behavior becomes progressively more automatic through repetition. The more you repeat an activity, the more the structure of your brain changes to become efficient at that activity. Neuroscientists call this long term potentiation, which refers to the strengthening of connections between neurons in the brain based on recent patterns of activity. With each repetition, cell to cell signaling improves and the neural connections tighten. First described by neuropsychologist Donald Hebb in 1949, this phenomenon is commonly known as Hebb's Law. Neurons that fire together wire together. Repeating a habit to clear physical changes in the brain. In musicians, the cerebellum, critical for physical movements like plucking the guitar strings or pulling the violin bow, is larger than it is for non musicians. Mathematicians, meanwhile, have increased gray matter in, in the inferior parietal lobule, which plays a key role in computation and calculation. Its size is directly correlated with the amount of time spent in the field. The older and more experienced the mathematician, the greater the increase in gray matter. Whether scientists analyzed the brains of taxi drivers in London, not whether, when, they found that the hippocampus, a region of the brain involved in spatial memory, was significantly larger than their subjects in non-taxi drivers. Even more fascinating, the hippocampus decreased in size when a driver retired. Like the muscles of the body responding to regular weight training, particular regions of the brain adapt as they are used and atrophy as they are abandoned. Of course, the importance of repetition in establishing habits was recognized long before neuroscientists began poking around. In 1860, the English philosopher George A. Lewes noted, in learning to speak a new language, to play on a musical instrument, or to perform unaccustomed movements, great difficulty is felt because because the channels through which each sensation has to pass have not become established. But no sooner has frequent repetition cut a pathway than this difficulty vanishes. The actions become so automatic that they can be performed while the mind is otherwise engaged. Both common sense and scientific evidence agree repetition is a form of change. Each time you repeat an action, you are activating a particular neural circuit associated with that habit. Each time you repeat an action, you are activating a particular neural circuit associated with that habit. Okay. Neural circuit. This means that simply putting in your reps is one of the most critical steps you can take to encoding a new habit, which is why the students who took tons of photos improved their skills while those who merely theorized about perfect photos did not. One group engaged in active practice, the other in passive learning. One in action, the other in motion. This is so fire. Oh my god, this is so fire. The habits follow a similar trajectory from effortful practice to automatic behavior. The process is known as automatically. Automatically is the ability to perform a behavior without thinking about each step, which occurs when the non conscious mind takes over. It looks something like this. automatically, how fast something becomes automatic, and repetitions the more you do it. So A, look at that. You know what I'm saying? This is the habit line. Boom, automatically, and boom, the more reps, boom. This is fire. Figure 11. In the beginning, point a habit requires a good deal of effort and concentration to perform. After a few repetitions, point B, it gets easier but still requires some conscious attention. With enough practice, point C, the habit becomes more automatic than conscious. Beyond this threshold, the habit line, the behavior can be done more or less without thinking. A new habit is formed. Bro, this is so heat. This is hyping me up, not gonna lie. On the following page, you'll see what it looks like when researchers track the level of automatically for an actual habit like walking for 10 minutes each day. The shape of these charts, which scientists call learning curves, reveal the important truth about behavior change. Habits form based on frequency, not time. Habits based on frequency, not time. Okay. All right. Here's the chart walking 10 minutes per day. Let me read this. Figure 12. This graph shows someone who built the habit of walking 10 minutes after breakfast each day. Notice that as the repetitions increase, so does automatically, until the behavior is as easy and automatic as it can be. One of the most common questions I hear is, how long does it take to build a new habit? But what people really should be asking is, how many does it take to form a new habit? Yep, how many times doing this would make this? That's a very good question. That is how many repetitions are required to make how many repetitions are required to make a habit automatic. Sorry to not read right here, but people usually say a new habit is formed in like what 21 days, but this book is saying like the contrary. Is saying it depends not on the days, but the reps. How many times have you done it in those 21? That's bro. This book is so heat. There is nothing magical about time passing with regard to habit formation. Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's been 21 days or 300 or 30 days or 300 days. What matters is the rate at which you perform the behavior. You could do something twice in 30 days or 200 days. Yeah. It is frequency that makes the difference. You cur- your current habits have been internalized over the course of hundreds, if not thousands, of repetitions. New habits require the same level of frequency. You need to string together enough successful attempts until the behavior is firmly embedded in your mind and you cross the habit line. Okay, I'm trying to cross the habit line. You know what I'm saying? In practice, it doesn't really matter how long it takes for the habit to become automatic. What matters is that you take the actions to take the you need to take to make progress. Whenever an action is fully automatic or of less importance, to build a habit, you need to practice it. And the most effective way to make practice happen is to adhere to the third law of behavior change. Make it easy. The chapter that follows will show you just exactly how to do that. Wow. Chapter summary. The third law of behavior change is make it easy. The most effective form of learning is practice, not planning. Focus on taking action, not being in motion. Habit formation is the process by which a behavior becomes progressively more automatic through repetition. The amount of times you have been performing a habit is not as important as the number of times you have performed it. Mm, very nice. Let me reread that. The amount of time you have been performing a habit is not as important as the number of times you have performed it.